All right, hello everyone and welcome back. I am Magduit and we are here again with another video, but not another rack. This time around I wanted to change it up a bit and explore a more ideological approach to production, less than a physical, tangible one in the form of like a rack or sample or whatever. So yeah, let's get into this. I'm excited. The fractal technique. So let's first start off by understanding what is a fractal, or what about fractals really applies to the name. It's not just a clickbait. So in mathematics, a fractal is a geometric shape containing detailed structure at arbitrarily small scales, usually having a fractal dimension strictly exceeding the topological dimension. Now, that's like the technical definition. Kind of sounds a little mumbo jumbo-ish, but let's go a little bit deeper because the idea of fractals totally applies to what I'm about to teach you, and also I can even go so far as to say it transcends all things. Let's be real, but let's just talk about this technique. So many fractals appear similar at various scales. This exhibition of similar patterns at increasingly smaller scales is called self-similarity, also known as expanding symmetry or unfolding symmetry. And that is really where the fractal technique is explained or understood better. So this self-symmetry is what we are going to apply to music, and in this case, sound design. So let's continue. What is the fractal technique? So in music, I've coined the fractal technique as a methodology for creating lots of different ideas in sound design and arrangement that still feel as if they are connected to one another, just as how fractals appear similar at various scales. So, in technical practice, the fractal technique consists of three main parts: the seed, the clone, and modify. So let's go into these three different parts or steps. So, step one, the seed. So this step is to create an idea or sound. Treat this as the seed to the entire element that this sound would be categorized as. For example, your mid bass, your pad, your lead, your arp, your drum loop, anything that you're creating, any idea that you are expressing, this is going to become the seed. So that is the first step. Oh, went too far. All right. The second step, step two, the clone. So in this step, you're going to duplicate this idea. So I have some pictures here, and I'll go over them in a second. But this way, you have two completely unique versions of the exact same thing, more or less immortalizing the seed, and in turn allowing us to make changes to the new duplicated clone of said original idea. So I've got these pictures here to kind of help demonstrate. So you've got the seed, which is just a saw wave and a low-pass filter, and there's movement on the low-pass filter, and that's it. Right? Little LFO attachment here. And the second step is literally the same thing. So this is the seed and this is the clone, and they are the exact same. You've got the saw wave, you've got the low pass filter, you've got the LFO shape and the movement amount. All of it is the same, but because we've cloned it, now this is its own entity. So they may be the same right now, but we're going to, on step three, modify this clone, and it's not going to change this original seed idea. So that's why the step is incredibly important. So step three, modify. So this is where we are going to make a few, very slight is the key word here, variations to the cloned idea. So I have found that 3 variations is a good sweet spot, but depending on the arrangement, more or less may be required. And I just want to point out again, another key point is that I do mean slight variations. So I don't mean a very steep or big change. I mean a very small change. And a lot of the times I will compare the previous version of the idea to the new one and make sure they are still connecting. Because there's a lot of times where it may not feel that way if you change too much. So in synthesis, for example, I try and keep the main fundamental wave shape or wavetable the exact same while layering things on top or changing or adding effects so that the main seed idea can still shine through in the new cloned idea, despite whatever changes we may have made. So that is kind of the nuanced part of this, and where things get creative, but also you want to try and maintain this fundamental thing that you've started with, which is the seed. So there's a hidden fourth step, but I didn't feel like it deserved its own kind of place, but it's to repeat steps 1 through 3. So the idea here is once you have a clone and you've modified that clone, then you can keep modifying that clone as many times as you want, treating that modified clone as the seed. So in this case scenario, we have, the saw wave is harmonically stretched slightly, and the wave LFO shape is changed a little bit, and then everything else is still the same. And then in this next clone here, we've changed the harmonic stretch a little bit more, changed the LFO shape, and it looks like that's about it. So very simple, small changes. So in this case scenario, I only did 2 changes to each of these, and that works too. Like I said, it's 1 to 3, 3 to 5, as many steps as you think works, but I found 3 is a good sweet spot. So yeah. Why is the fractal technique so helpful? So even though sound designing while producing can become a distraction and a derailment from creating a fuller and potentially more intricate arrangement, it is still fun, and I have found that it at times can help a producer develop a lot of useful sound design techniques, as well as create more controlled and precise arrangements. Because of this, the fractal technique is a great tool for understanding the fundamental principles of creating sounds that are connected to one another. This technique is also somewhat simple in terms of execution, and I have found it to improve other areas of my workflow outside of just sound designing. For example, the same ideas can be applied to arranging drums. So if you have 2 drum patterns or a drum pattern idea that you've created, you can duplicate that idea and make a couple of slight variations to that, and suddenly your drums have evolved. So yeah, that's the end. That's the whole fractal technique. Thank you for watching my presentation. So yeah, let us explore from a more tangible perspective what this technique entails. So I've created a little project here that will be on the Patreon as well. It's in the downloads. Same installation process as everything else I've put out. It's an ALP file. So yeah, let's explore what I have created here, and then we're going to also add to this to kind of go further within the fractal. So let's just listen to what we have right now. Okay, yeah, pretty cool. So as you can see, those sounds are all very different, but they do feel like they belong together. And the way that I did that was by utilizing this technique. So what we're going to do here is we're going to treat this entire project as the seed, right? So this is the seed, right? And we're going to duplicate it. All right, and now we're going to create a whole different variation of that seed by making slight variations to what we have right now. So let's first start off with the bass sounds. So what we're going to do here is we're going to treat this as like group 1, right? And we're just going to duplicate this whole group. So we've got all these sounds, and we're going to call this group 2, and we've got the first group of 4 sounds, which is in the first section here. So we're going to delete them here. All right, and then we're going to go to the second group, and now we've got our second group of sounds. We're going to delete this first section here because we don't need that anymore because they're already up here in this first group. So same sounds, right? Well, let's go in here and change them slightly. So maybe on this second section we can change the LFO speed. Maybe adjust the release here. Maybe bring this up a little. Maybe bring up some of this chorusing effect. Maybe bring down the sustain and decay. Okay, there we go. Now let's go into this clone here. Let's go and variate this slightly. We'll have this one be faster too, just because of the other one being faster. Maybe we can go in here and mess with the chorusing. Heck, maybe even we add like a flanger on top of that, because why not? Maybe we bring up the volume of this ever so slightly. So maybe the sustain adjustment was not the vibe. There we go. All right. Now let's go back to this or forward to this last set of basses here. So now we've got the kind of higher frequency ones, and all I did to these was I just added another waveform, pitched it up. Still this is the init saw wave, and then just harmonically stretched it. So maybe we can like slow it down this time. I'm filtering them both separately too. Okay, and then let's go to this next clone here, make some variations to that. Make this slow. Let's also adjust the pattern so it kind of works better. So what I want to do here is I want this to kind of just be one continuous long note. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into Vital and I'm going to set this. It's already on one voice, but what I want is for it to be legato and I want there to be glide. So that way what ends up happening is when I play that second note, there's only one voice. It's going to glide up to that next note. So it'll still feel like there's only been one note playing the whole time. And there we go. So now we've kind of created a whole separate section and it should all work together here. Let's see. So the one thing I want to change, so we compared this all right, we're listening to it in context. I think this isn't working. So whatever we did here, the changes we made weren't good for the connection, and I think it's because it's going too fast. Because we want to keep that kind of because I think all of them are doing that. So that way we've got that kind of continual feeling, that continuation on this sound. And I think this one could be changed a little bit. Just adjust that a little bit because we've already kind of got a high pitch one over here. So that way we've got four different kind of doop doop doop. And yeah, I feel like they all work really well together. So the next thing we can do, as I described inside of the tutorial presentation, is we can also apply the same thing to the drums. So right now these are two duplicates of the exact same drum pattern, but what we can do is go in here and maybe add something, or remove something but I think adding some intensity would be cool here. So let's go ahead and find one of these sounds that we like. Yeah, so maybe we can add that like a just on every downbeat here. Maybe even do this. Have it kind of on the 1 and 3. Yeah, and then we can just copy this. And we can go to all these other ones and paste it in there. Just do that. Do that and do that. There we go. And then maybe we can add like another kind of turnaround vibe here. So instead of that ride, we can maybe do maybe that ride instead. And then maybe put like a little percussive sound. And then on this one, maybe we can go in and change this crash to something else. Yeah, and then maybe we can even raise this up. That way we've got these. Okay, whoops. We want to move these down. That way we have variation again. So this is kind of like the first clone, and then this would be like the second clone. And what I'm doing is I'm just making slight variations to the thing that I've already created. So that way we're building up the intensity every single time. So let's listen to it all the way from the beginning again. All right, almost. I think the one thing that I didn't like is how loud these were. Whoops. Let me just grab those and drag those down. Let's just copy that. And then we'll just paste that right here. There we go. Delete this last one. Now, when it comes to continuing the idea of keeping these all together, and I didn't include this in the tutorial because it's not quite as fundamentally important, but I have found that when you process everything together, so if I was to group these two groups together now and make this like the main vital group, or main group, we'll just do main base group maybe. All right. That helps. So if I have like a glue compressor and I put that glue compressor across all of these, it's going to change them all together. So what ends up happening is you have this feeling of them all being connected because whatever you're doing to every single one of them. So for example, if I put an amp, which would add distortion, but let's just for the sake of argument do that. Let's put like a clean amp on here. Sorry, it just doesn't get old. But yeah, you guys get the idea. That's the fractal technique. It's pretty straightforward. I hope that what I did helped. I can create another video in the future where I go from the very beginning, but it's very straightforward. Whatever you're making will be fine. And I started out with this clone here, but my point is you could do anything. And this is a very simple thing. It's just a basic shape that was once a saw wave, and then I harmonically stretched it and put an LFO on it, you know? So very simple. That was the first thing I made. And then I cloned that and went to this here, and I harmonically stretched it just a little bit more, and I changed the shape of the LFO, just like the pictures in the slideshow presentation. So yeah, it's really, really fun. And I think you guys should try it out. If you're having issues with creating bass sounds, or I guess even creating arrangements that don't feel like they belong together, this will hopefully help you with exploring that journey and becoming better at music production in general, I suppose. But like I said, this applies to everything. So yeah, make slight variations and then see if it works. But don't try and change too much. Otherwise, it will sound pretty strange. And we actually had that happen. So that's good. You saw how at times you can notice, like, okay, maybe that change that I made wasn't the right change. And that'll happen often. Maybe not as often as it happened here. Maybe it'll take you a while to get to that point. I don't know. Or maybe it'll happen so much that you'll realize, oh, I got to maybe just tone back what I'm doing a little bit and maybe try and change a little bit less. But it will happen, and that's okay. All you got to do is just go back in and change it again until it feels like it belongs. And because you're making such slight variations, it's very easy to just undo what you did and then start again and make those slight variations again. So yeah, that's the fractal technique. I hope this video was helpful. Please do the usual liking and the commenting and all of that stuff. Subscribe to the Patreon. Get all the free stuff that I put out once a week. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. So stay cool, and I'll see you then. Peace.